Previously on the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
What are we reading next month, Sean?
Well, next month it's back to the Virgin New Adventures, and it's going to be a Mark Gatiss book. It's going to be a book called St. Anthony's Fire, and it's got the Doctor and Betty, and that's all that I know about it.
Interesting.
I haven't heard anything bad or good about it, but we'll see.
That's usually a bad sign.
And now, the conclusion. Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
And Chris in South London.
Chris, hello. It's August, and we're back together again for another exciting book.
It's great. It's been an interesting few weeks in the world of Doctor Who, to sort of put it mildly. So hopefully by the time this has come out, things might have kind of settled down and calmed down a bit with reactions to a certain announcement on the casting front. Where were you when you found out the news?
It's a funny story. So for those who are wondering, or who may be listening to this later, we're talking about, of course, the casting of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th or 15th Doctor, depending on how you count.
Yeah.
She's the first woman to play the part ever. So this is huge news, and it has been causing ripples across fandom. I think a lot of people are excited. Some people may be more reserved, or in a few cases, perhaps not excited.
Yeah.
No, I found out the news. I was on you probably don't have these in England. Have you ever heard of a pizza farm?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, so
I'm intrigued. Go on. What's a pizza farm?
About an hour south of the Twin Cities, there's a town called Northfield. It's south of the cities, but it's got North in the title. But it's a thing where farms will install brick oven pizza ovens, I guess, and invite the public to, hang out at the farm, and, you see the horses and get out of the city and that sort of thing, and all the animals, and you can have a big piece of pizza while you do it. It's a very American thing.
I've never heard of that. Most of my experience of kind of like life in America has been the Deep South, where pizza farms not so much a thing.
It's a relatively new thing.
Okay.
But I meant American in terms of, in order to visit a farm, you need to have a slice of pizza in your hand, that sort of thing.
I mean, are the ingredients kind of like from the farm?
Yeah, locally sourced, yeah.
Tomatoes and, yes, and you might see the meat as you arrive, yeah. Okay.
I had watched the video there, and it was a very surreal, because it was a lot more crowded than I thought it would be. So it was like something like 100 or so, 200 people, all waiting in line for pizza at this farm. It wasn't. Right. It was kind of a weird experience, but to say the least. Where were you when you found out the news?
I was at a music festival. So I just finished watching Mavis Staples of Motown fame. I'd also been sort of checking on Twitter and sort of seeing that the Wimbledon match was wrapping up, because people of the future, this was announced immediately after the men's Wimbledon final. So not a static time, but something that's kind of sports dependent, which would have meant that probably there were quite a lot of people watching their tennis in the UK that don't normally. I found out whilst kind of sitting in the stands, and was quite surprised. And then it was announced to the masses at the festival by Neil Hanlon of the Divine Comedy, who I seem to recall has popped up on stuff as like a celebrity fan It was at the start of the Divine Comedy set. He told people that there was a female Doctor Who, and he seemed to be greatly in favour. It's like most of the time I found out about it from watching TV or reading press reports. It was quite strange, kind of leaving the tent and kind of knowing that by the time I get back into the tent, I'll know who the new Doctor is. Because there was one actor who was being touted whose name I didn't want to be hearing, and we didn't hear that name, so I was very, very glad.
Yeah, I was excited, and it'll be interesting to see where the show goes from here. I'm almost as intrigued with kind of where Chris Chibnall's going to take the show as I am, in terms of having a female Doctor, because there's so many different ways you can play it, right? Ideally, I would think it would be no different than a male Doctor taking the role, but of course there could be instances like we've seen with, say, Bill or Martha as a companion, where in history, depending on the era you visit, could introduce additional problems into a particular story, from a narrative perspective. But I'm excited. I haven't really seen any of her other work yet, so I'm going to seek some of that out. And I've listened to a couple of different podcasts go over her kind of CV.
I've not seen much of her work. I have a confession to make. I don't like Broadchurch. I saw a couple of episodes of it, and I'd have seen her in that. Yeah, so I'm slightly nervous about Chibnall, but I've been told by various friends of mine that regardless of the merits of Broadchurch, she is excellent. Including, been told by friends of mine who didn't like Broadchurch. So I am more excited for her and what she represents than necessarily the guy who wrote Cyberwoman for Torchwood.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he'll prove us wrong, and
I'm very happy to prove him wrong, and I'm sure I'm sure I'll be able to kind of find sort of like in the modern series, even in episodes that have very much not been to my taste, I've been able to find something to enjoy, and so I'd rather watch bad Doctor Who than watch sort of lots of other stuff, which is why Time Lash is one of my favourite stories. Yes, and there's the almost obligatory Time Lash reference.
There we go.
Right,
we got it in early. So apart from the big casting news, what do you have for us for show and tell?
Right, so for show and tell, so I'm going to be staying at that music festival that I was speaking about. Earlier on that day, I'd seen Catherine Jenkins of A Christmas Carol fame and general opera singing at a lake, which is all very lovely, but that's not what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
I was in a crowd watching Willie Mason, a sort of an alt country sort of singer who had a kind of a minor hit about 10 years or so ago, and it was all very lovely and jolly. And I noticed that in front of me there was this bored kid who was kind of at his parents' feet reading. I then noticed that he was reading about Wotan and the Zabi. So it was this kid reading this Doctor Who sticker book. And he was kind of like obviously at the far end of the alphabet, and he was just poring over it. I mean, part of it might have been because he obviously wasn't as much of a fan in alt country as the people around him. But yeah, I just thought, what a remarkable world it is that you've got sort of kids, I mean, say 10, 11 or so, reading about stuff that was on TV before their parents were born. Well before their parents were born. And that possibly their grandparents would have seen as kids. And and he did seem to be kind of like taking kind of enjoyment from it. I was always kind of getting a bit distracted by it, so I kind of moved away to another bit of the crowd. But yeah, so I don't know whether I'm submitting sort of the excitement of seeing kind of young fans, or whether I'm sort of submitting the Doctor Who sticker book, which did seem to have a lot more text in it than I would have expected.
Nice.
And Wotan, I wouldn't have thought would be the Doctor Who sticker book. That's a deep cut. But yeah.
That's really cool. Sometimes I hear my husband is a high school teacher, so I hear stories sometimes about kids who are really big Doctor Who fans at school, and it was interesting to kind of see how that's grown over the years, especially in the States, I would say, somewhat with Tennant, but definitely when, Matt Smith came on board, there was a big uptick in interest. But that's always great to see that, and especially something so obscure too.
Yes.
as that's really cool. Speaking of Doctor Who and the Zarbi,
Are they in the Christmas special? Everything else seems to be in the Christmas special.
they could be. It's hard to say.
Yes.
But no, BBC Books just announced, I saw that they're going to start doing audio adaptations of the stories from the annuals. So, so those are going to come in a collection this fall. I think the first 6 Doctors, which makes sense because I don't know that there were any.
No, the annuals stopped, so that were done by, I think it was Fleetway Publishing, I may be wrong. So they stopped after the hiatus, and then Marvel revived the tradition in the kind of mid-90s or early to mid-90s. So yeah, you won't see many short stories or any short stories of the Seventh Doctor in an annual form, unless, from what I recall. But and some of those short stories that were from the first 6 Doctors are of variable quality and variable familiarity of the show as well. but fascinating reads.
Yeah.
But, yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, sorry.
So for show and tell for myself, I'm going to talk about my favorite piece of Doctor Who merchandise ever. And this, I like it so much because it shouldn't exist. It's it came out in 1997, and it was it's a toy. It's like a micro playset,
Right.
similar to like I think popular at the time. There was like Polly Pocket and Star Trek Inner Space series by Playmates and
Right.
Micro Machines,
Okay.
and it's called Doctor Who in the Domain of the Daleks. It came out in 97, so a year after the TV movie. It's a miniatures playset that features the 8th Doctor frosted ice logo, which was only in use for a year.
Yeah.
It features the 4th Doctor, Davros as they appeared in Remembrance of the Daleks.
Okay.
It's just this kind of bizarre collection of little miniature toys that fit inside this folding Dalek playset.
Okay.
And it's such a weird thing because it really shouldn't exist. It came out, after Dapol lost the license and before Character Options got the action figure license, and it's just kind of this weird piece of merchandise from the Wilderness Years era that it took me a while to track one down, but I'm really glad that I got one.
I've never heard of that.
If you Google like Bluebird Doctor Who Dalek,
Right, okay.
it should come up if you want to see a picture of it.
Yeah, I'll have a look. That was, shall we say, optimistic for anybody to be putting. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, having looked at it. So it's kind of, the Dalek is very kind of like Pertwee type colouring. And the Dalek pops up and there's a TARDIS inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Wow. I've never, this is very much not crossed my radar. So you've got Tom Baker doing some kind of squat, and with his scarf seemingly stuck to his trousers.
Yep.
And this photo might not be a very good quality photo, but it doesn't look like it's the closest model to him.
That would be accurate, yeah.
Yeah. and Davros looks a bit of like a kind of a blob in the Emperor's sort of suit type thing that he had in Remembrance. But yeah,
It's a kind of a bizarre piece of merchandise, and I know like Star Trek at the time had like fold-out Enterprises that were similar, so I wonder if it was trying to take advantage of whatever small market there was for that. But so that's my
cool. Okay.
show, I guess, for the month.
Yeah.
So this month we're going to be talking about St. Anthony's Fire by Mark Gatiss. Now, I haven't heard of Mark before. What else does he do?
You jest, sir. You jest. Yes. Yeah. So this was Mark's second book. I think second book ever. Certainly second book for Doctor Who.
The difficult second album, as it were.
Yes, we will see how accurate that is. And this was also, after he wrote this, he didn't write for the current Doctor. until he did one of the audios. I think it was Invaders from Mars for Paul McGann's Doctor Big Finish. And then it was the TV era. He's done quite a few TV scripts. There does seem to be a kind of like a vocal section of fandom that doesn't care for his scripts, from what I've seen. I won't want to say that I can kind of defend all of them. I didn't care for Robert of Sherwood, for example. However, I do quite like some. I like Victory of the Daleks. I'm sorry, I enjoy Victory of the Daleks, and also I've quite liked as well Sleep No More. I prefer Sleep No More to Heaven Sent.
What?
I really do. I think Heaven Sent's sort of very much overhyped.
I think you just broke my brain, but
yeah. 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 My opinions not align with most other people's. So.
Wow.
You're going to take a while to recover from.
Yeah. I'm collecting my thoughts. Wow. So yeah, with Mark Gatiss, I've liked some of his work, some of it not as much. I really did not care for Sleep No More. I think a lot of fans kind of share that opinion, as you said, kind of an outlier. Some of his work, though, I rather enjoyed The Crimson Horror, which might be kind of out there as well. I liked Cold War quite a bit.
Yeah.
Unquiet Dead's an interesting one because while I enjoyed it at the time, if you go back and really look at like the Doctor's motivations and how he essentially just kind of gives up in the cellar after it's kind of a really dark story, and you could very much look at it as kind of the Doctor taking his whole PTSD to another level and involving Rose in it. So it kind of has a weird take if you look at some of the Doctor's motivations in that story. But Idiot's Lantern wasn't my favorite. It was okay. There's definitely certain themes that come up again and again in his work, whether good or for bad. There tends to be, very, as is with this book, very male dominated cast.
Oh yeah.
We get that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then without getting too far ahead into the book too, seems to have, and from what I've heard, he has an entire room in his house that he's converted into like a Victorian laboratory. And he has a fascination with like gas lamps. So I think throughout this book, you get at least one reference in every chapter to the flickering of the gas lamps, which kind of calls back to calls forward to Unquiet Dead, which he wrote about a decade later. I think everyone's somewhat familiar with Mark Gatiss. He's written for the show almost every season, and he's appeared in it twice, I think, right? As Professor Lazarus and as a Viking.
And he will appear in it again.
Yes, that's right, of course.
Yes, yeah. So, and also in this country as well, he's quite famous for The League of Gentlemen, which was a TV series that he did with Reece Shearsmith, amongst others, which started appearing on our screens not long after sort of St. Anthony's Fire well, I say not long, probably about 3 or 4 years, but it was kind of bubbling away. So I found it quite strange at a time that one of these kind of big comedy stars was a guy who was he had been writing Doctor Who books. So right, okay.
I had met him at the same Gallifrey in 2006 that Stephen Moffat was at, and my one memory of him is that he did not care for the T-shirt I was wearing. I had on I think a Little Britain T-shirt.
Oh, okay.
Which long before it had kind of run its way into the ground. This is after maybe the first or second series had aired, where Tom Baker was narrating it, and there was a reference to Davros. So back in the Wilderness years, that was huge for fans to even get a mention of the show on some of other property. And he had worked on, I think, the first series of Little Britain as a script editor, but then he left after that, and I don't know if it was just scheduling or if it was something to do with
creative differences,
or whatever. But he looked at my shirt and he just kind of scoffed. So No.
I have a Mark Gatiss story that doesn't involve attire. When the 50th sort of anniversary year was in play, there was a screening of The Mind of Evil at the BFI, the British Film Institute, and he was there amongst along with Katie Manning and various other people that were kind of like sort of involved in the production of the program, and there was a kind of a Q&A, and there was one guy in the audience who was sort of saying to sort of Tim Coombs that the scripts were so good in those days, unlike nowadays. Sorry, Mark, in a very passive aggressive way. I just felt a bit sorry for Mark Gatiss. Betrushia. There's kind of like a little cafe thing there, and I saw somebody go up to him with kind of like his family. I was like, oh, don't bother him. Just leave him be. And I kind of thought, do I wander over and say something? And then I realised, oh no, that's Mark Ayres. Yeah. I'm not going to go and I'm not going to steam in and just make an idiot of myself. So I saved myself from defending the two Marks from meeting each other. Probably just as well. I can't imagine that would be well received by either party. Right. Shall we begin with St. Anthony's Fire?
Yes, and so this book, it has 20 chapters, a prelude and an epilogue, and then there was a prologue that was published in Doctor Who magazine, right?
Yes, there was, which is... And most of that is set a few years before the main body of the action, and like most of the, because Doctor Who magazine at the time would on a regular basis have some kind of writing from that month's new adventure, and most of the time it just didn't read well as a story or be a particularly effective hook into the novel. I would say that this kind of is very much into that camp of it's not essential. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so
and that happens to be our dramatic reading for the month.
Yeah, the actual the prologue from the novel is a dramatic reading rather than the prelude.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Shall we have a listen?
By the end of the night, Nereid knew she'd be dead. Her whole body shaking, she sank down on the grass, breath coming in rasping hiccoughs. Exhaustion flooded through her like anesthesia, seeping into every bone, every aching sinew, forcing her heavy head down towards the bastion. Nereid's eyes clamped shut, and there was a brief period of luxurious, cool darkness. She listened for the sounds of the world around her. There was nothing. No wind, no voices, not even the mournful cries of the bedchat which normally wheeled and flocked in the winter sky. Nothing. She kept her eyes shut and ran both her hands down her body, feeling the wet sheen of her skin, as though for the first time. Almost over. There was a deep, startling rumble from the far horizon. Nereid's yellow eyes flicked open and she cocked her head to one side. Above, the sky was darkening, thickening. She leapt to her feet and took off across the pastureland, long toes digging deep into the ground. Something seemed to rush at her and she stumbled, knees ploughing into the soil. She gasped, winded and struggled for breath, willing air into her screaming lungs. Sniffing the air, Nereid's small, warty face wrinkled in disgust. It was coming. She could smell it. The thunderous boom came again, rolling into one long, disquieting peal. Ahead, the forest stirred, as though unnerved, spindly branches tearing at the air like the hands of ebony skeletons. Nereid bolted towards the only shelter she knew, clutching the spool in her sweat-soaked hands for dear life. So little time. All at once, Feasum was in front of her, waving his hands frantically and casting anxious glances at the darkening air. He was bellowing something, but Nereid couldn't make it out. Behind him, the polygon shone dully, like a fragment of storm cloud ripped from the sky. Feasum was already halfway inside. Quickly! Run, Nereid! Run! Run! Spit flew from between his teeth. Nereid scrambled across the pasture, her long arms scuffing at the earth as she struggled to maintain her pace. One glance over her shoulder at the sickly, liverish sky confirmed her worst fears. She choked back a tide of overwhelming panic. Blood roared in her ears. She didn't want to die, above all things, but Feason said it was inevitable, and Feason was never wrong. The small man flapped his hands in agitation and grabbed Nereid by the scruff of the neck. She stumbled over the threshold into the polygon and fell back against the padded walls. Feason took the spool from her hand and rammed it into the black console by his feet. "I'd all but given up," he said, his voice little more than a tiny, tight whisper. Nereid nodded wearily, her head dragging itself down onto her shuddering chest. She held out her hand and watched it tremble. There were tiny half-moons of blood on her palms, where her nails had dug in. It would all have been for nothing she dropped the spool. 3 low chimes sounded from the black console, and Feason nodded slowly. "It's done," he said, simply, holding out a hand for Nereid. She looked at him, and saw tears brimming in his sun-yellow eyes. The feel of his rough hand in hers was almost unbearably reassuring. Feason pulled Nereid to her feet and wrapped his long, thin arms around her. The room began to shake violently. "Well," said Nereid. Feason smiled a small, sad smile, and together they stepped out of the polygon. When they were dead, when the last of Nereid and Feason's gluttonous blood had disappeared in the inconceivable darkness, the polygon slid silently below the ground, gently excavating a pit for itself and its secrets.
All right, and that was the that was the prologue. Thank you for recording that, Chris.
No worries, no worries.
And I should have mentioned too that every chapter kind of has like a Hartnell style episode title, so you'll get chapters like "Attack from the Unknown."
Yes. Yeah,
so that was kind of cool.
Well, also probably worth mentioning that the characters that are that you've just been hearing about, Nereid and Feason, I pronounce it Feason, I think. We won't hear anything more of them until about 3/4 of the way in. So it's the grand tradition of kind of opening scene to the New Adventures book that you're going to take a long time before you realise what it's got to do with the price of fish.
From a setting perspective, this takes place in 2148 AD. I think there's a single reference to the time period, although it's not really important because it takes place off Earth and it's set somewhere, near future is really all you have to know about that. And then from the perspective of where it takes place in the Doctor, Benny, and Ace's timeline, this would be after the 3 of them had been traveling together for a while, and Ace had left for a period of about 3 years to go fight in the Dalek Wars, and she is back and is part of the TARDIS crew after that time.
Yeah, and so we're between the Doctor Who books First Frontier and Falls to Shadow. That really won't necessarily mean too much to folk, and we're not in the middle of a story arc, so yay!
That's nice to have a standalone.
Yes.
So the book opens with there are 2 groups fighting on a planet called Betrushia. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of alien names, so there may be multiple pronunciations.
Yes.
And the people of this planet are lizard like, I guess. So they're bipedal, but they're kind of like Silurians or Ice Warriors or Chelonians, if you have read Gareth Roberts, although they're more like turtles. But kind of reptiles, and they've been fighting a civil war planet-wide for about 15 years, and it's gotten to the point. Go ahead.
You say it's a civil war. So is it a civil war or a world war?
Oh, that's a good point.
Because this is one of the things that Betrushia, it doesn't feel like a terribly big place. But anyway, we'll kind of go into some of that. But also go back to kind of describing what creatures look like. We're going to be spending a lot of time, and they are described at one point as being kind of iguana-like, which is probably a good way to kind of picture them. So, like iguanas walking around in kind of tunics and uniforms.
They are on the cover too, so.
They are, and what a beautiful cover it is. Yes, it's the grand tradition of New Adventures cover where I was like, oh, well, I guess that's a picture. But actually, unlike some of the covers, it's a scene that we do actually see in the book. So, yay!
Yep. And these two lizard-like, I guess you could call them races, because part of their war against each other is ideological in like a race war where one group's trying to purify the other, and then there's religious things intermixed in there as well. So it's quite a conflict.
Though we don't go into too much of the religion of the other side, so we are going to basically see this from one side. So we fairly early on meet a lizard called Grek, who's leading a squadron in this kind of jungle-based conflict. And kind of go back again to the scale of this planet. It appears to be primarily a jungle planet, in a kind of like a Terry Nation school of planets must all have one type of habitat. Because I don't remember much about any kind of like Arctic areas or anything. It does appear to be almost entirely jungle from what we see, at least.
And really only 3 or 4 large cities on each side too, so it's not terribly huge. So maybe it's all happening on one continent, or in terms of technology too, it is kind of set in that Gatiss' favorite time period of Victorian or Edwardian era, where you have rifles and you have dirigibles, and in terms of the level of technology, I think it's kind of at like almost like a not quite a steampunk level.
Yeah, and also the conflict is best thought of as kind of like World War One. So we have kind of like trench warfare. And kind of Grek feels very much like a character from World War I literature. I was very much reminded of the play Journey's End, which there are certainly 1 or 2 kind of parallels to in some of the early bits.
He reminded me a lot of the Brigadier, just in terms of kind of his attitude and outlook, and where he wouldn't hesitate to kill someone if necessary, but if it was justified, but he respected honor and the chain of command and that sort of thing. And
Grek's been fighting this war for quite a long time. There are some younger soldiers under him. There's a guy called Priss who's sort of quite eager to impress, but there's also this general sense that his men know that he's weary of the war, and there is a sense as well that the men feel that he's not the right leader for them. There's a guy called Lisso who we meet fairly early on, who's kind of got like a sort of pristine uniform, and he seems to be sort of regarding himself as like one for the future. So you've got a little bit of kind of jockeying for position.
The other main character, I would say, is at least within that group. And the two sides, the side we're talking about with Grek is called the Ismech, and the other side is called the Kutch, kind of the two groups. The other kind of main Ismech character, I think, is his name is Ran, and he has like one eye, and he's kind of a battle-weary soldier.
Oh no, I think Rand's not the twitch. Lisso's got the one eye.
Oh,
it's very hard to tell between the two characters.
That's right. Yep.
So quite often when they appear, it's like, oh, Rand's sort of twitching face, like, oh yeah, it's that one. Because you have Press's young officer. You also have an elderly doctor called Makonza, who he's there as the kind of like the sage advice to Grek, because they both fought in the Battle of Delarida Bridge, which pops up quite a bit in conversation. And doesn't that sound World War One? So basically, there's a World War One vibe going on. There's also a peace that's being agreed, or on the brink of being agreed, between the Ismech and the Kutch. And people are quite cynical about the peace, and they're sort of saying, is it worth all of the deaths on their sides? And whilst all that's going on as well, we kind of cut to the capital city, which is a place called Porsim, And there we encounter a kind of like a president type figure. You'd have thought would be kind of hammering out the peace, but it turns out that the capital city has been devastated by unknown forces, and he thinks that sort of something has returned from the past. And we will start hearing a few little kind of nods to that effect. And also, Greg is noticing that a few of the other kind of cities and a few of the other generals they're not hearing from. So it seems to be some kind of, at the moment they're thinking it's some kind of like transmitter problem.
And there's also another character, a priest named
Foss.
Foss, yep.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like the chaplain of this group. And the medical doctor, he's examining someone who has shrapnel. I think the soldier ended up dying, but he's discovering that it's not bullets, but it's really like meteor fragments that are falling, almost like shell, like getting shelled. But it's not the traditional shrapnel that they're used to. It's like bits of stone.
We then kind of cut back to our president figure, who he's sort of sending out word to all the various military forces scattered sort of throughout the planet to kind of come back to defend the capital city, but he's not getting any response. And then his office starts to shake and it kind of explodes. And there's this rather wonderful, morbid line because he sends out a message, but then kind of gets caught in a tunnel of flame and dies. But there's this line saying, "His children stare out from their watercolour world, innocent painted eyes, now spattered with the blood of their father." And that it's a terrific little scene. And you may be noticing we haven't spoken much about the TARDIS. Now back on the TARDIS.
The Doctor and Benny have a conversation where Benny mentions, they had just gotten done with their big, although it's not mentioned, the novel before this was with the Master, and there was a lot of stress and stuff going on, and Benny thinks, okay, I want to visit just a nice colony, have a little bit of a break, and she's thinking in her mind, oh, there's this one place called the 11th Colony, and I want to go there and see what happened there, and she's not remembering why she thought of it.
Yeah.
And while that's happening,
she crucially, there's a moral lesson for us all here. She checks out the TARDIS library to find out more information, and she finds in there a luminous hat box and a copy of the Moonstone, but no information on the planet. So you need to make sure your archiving system is up to date, people, because otherwise the tragic scenes we will hear in the novel could happen to you.
Trouble lies ahead.
Yes.
So the Doctor goes to find Ace, and you get a couple of cool scenes within the TARDIS where he's wandering around and finds her on a beach looking out at the ocean.
Yes, because the TARDIS has one of the Great Lakes inside it.
we do get a bit of that in is it Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, where
we do.
Where a beach in Wales, the same beach that Journey's End and all the others happened on.
Yeah,
yep.
So maybe it's the same beach. It sounds a bit warmer in the book than Wales would be. But
they go to this colony, which is it's a human colony, and it's called Massatorus. And this is the same colony that Benny was thinking of, but nearby is a planet called Betrushia, which is the planet where this war with the Ismech and the Kutch has been happening. But the Doctor and Benny don't know anything about that war. They want to go nip off to that planet to check out the ring system.
Yeah. There's also one other little thing that I'd like to chuck in here, because this is a random thing that we spend a bit of time on. No immediately obvious reason. So the Doctor is doing some work on reconfiguring the TARDIS exterior. And there's been fluctuations in the chameleon circuit that's kind of caused them to lose the whole stacked roof in the past, and now he thinks he'll have St. John's ambulance sign back on the front, and there's quite a bit of he's proud that it's come back. And there's something been interesting because in the most recent issue of Doctor Who magazine, Mark Gatiss was being interviewed. Then apparently it was almost like on contractual negotiations for Victory of the Daleks, the St. John's ambulance line had to be restored for the 11th Doctor's era, or otherwise he wouldn't write a script.
Oh, wow.
So, he's got a big thing about this. I mean, we spent about 2 to 3 pages discussing the St. John's ambulance line. I'm like, really? Is this the most interesting way we can spend this time?
Yeah, him trying to retcon, like, why the exterior of the police box has changed, and presumably by the time of the 8th Doctor TV movie, the badge falls off again, and it switches around. So the Doctor and Benny leave Ace on Massatorus, and they decide to go to Betrushia to look at the ring system. Yeah. And while they land on the planet, the rings aren't quite at their most brilliant yet. As they're walking through the jungle, they don't realize it, but they kind of land in the middle between these two armies, almost in no man's land,
in Grand Doctor Who style. Yeah,
each of them being captured by the other side.
Yes, yeah. When we next see the Doctor, he's tied to a post. He's trying to kind of put together his memories of how he's got to this situation, and he's kind of like then kind of put on a spit, and he's sort of being kind of slowly cooked by the flames. It's the cover of the book. And we've got that.
And Benny's captured by the Kutch, but she's rescued pretty quickly thereafter. She only meets them really briefly.
Yeah, and they don't know if she's male or female, and they're quite surprised that she can talk.
Yep, you definitely get like a kind of Planet of the Apes kind of vibes when she starts speaking. Yeah. The Doctor, meanwhile, so Grek has kind of heard about the Doctor being captured, and so he's wanting to sort of exercise his scientific interest, and so he goes and has examined this hideous ape that has been captured, so that he could then maybe claim to have discovered it and get greater fame. Apparently, again according to Doctor Who magazine, this was where Gatiss originally wanted the Doctor to make his first appearance in the book. Wow.
For you to have all of these kind of scenes about sort of people of Betrushia, and then the Doctor kind of, we see him having been captured. Then we find out how he got there. I don't think that would have necessarily worked. I mean, I'm not going to say yet whether this works, but Gatiss was talking about how editorial insisted that it be structured in a more kind of like linear way. But
Interesting. Well,
Grek started to encounter the Doctor.
Yep, and he narrowly avoids execution because I think Grek was going to just kill him, or at least some of the other soldiers were going to.
Yes, on the spit. And then Grek has a kind of a shock when he realises that the Doctor can speak.
Right.
And then when Grek accused the Doctor of being a freak, the Doctor reminisces about knowing some Siamese twins and the odd hermaphrodite, a very odd hermaphrodite, in fact. Is that a reference to Alpha Centauri?
Yeah, I was thinking that it must have been, yeah.
Yeah. So that's obviously been a Mark Gatiss interest for a long time. And the room suddenly kind of shakes at this point, and the Doctor then kind of protects Grek by tipping a table over him before the walls cave in. So we get another one of these examples of the Doctor having almost kind of like superhuman reflexes that the New Adventures seem to like to do every now and again.
He's kept under guard, but he's able to get out relatively easily. And
they start taking him a bit more seriously.
Yeah.
And kind of when they learn about Benny, they reckon that she's been captured by the Kutch, and saying that makes her as good as dead. And Grek doesn't want to send a rescue mission because with Armistice so close, he doesn't want his men to be killed over an animal. And it's also around about this point we start seeing some appearances of an unnamed woman in a simple room with a golden cross and a jug of frozen water, and she's kind of in some kind of seminary thing. She'll be making appearances throughout, but we just have to kind of plant that seed there.
And she's described as having like a shaved head and is kind of like a monk or an acolyte as part of this institution. And
through her, we'll kind of start to find out some of the people in the organisation she's a member of. Benny, as you were kind of alluding to earlier, she gets captured again but this time by Grek's side.
I think Ran was the one who saved.
Yes, yeah. Ran rescues. He's quite a devout soldier and bangs on about his oath and the Kutch are racially inferior, which He's a charmer, and he believes that the Kutch breed like mammals. I was like, oh, okay, lovely. We also learned, though, that the Kutch have put a tracking device on Benny. Foreshadowing.
Hidden on her coat, and that seemed a little incongruous, I thought, with some of the other technology, but they did have, long-range communications and stuff, so perhaps
it's convenient for the plot for later.
So the Doctor escapes the room he's being held in and leaves it's an underground bunker kind of attached to a trench, like you were talking about earlier with the trench warfare. And so he misses Benny by really just a matter of minutes.
Does he?
Yeah, so he escapes, and then she's brought into the headquarters.
Okay.
Yeah. So they miss each other. There's a lot of that going on in this book.
Yeah.
They.
Oh God, yes.
Yep.
We also have at this point Ran. Or Mr. Twitchy, as Benny occasionally refers to him. He starts reflecting upon his past and reflecting upon that rarity in this book, a female character. A lady called Testra, who is one of the nicest non-whores he's met, and he's reminiscing about how nice she was for someone who wasn't a prostitute, and then she gets blown up. It's wrong.
Apart from Benny and Ace and the woman we alluded to earlier, there's no other mention really of any female characters in this entire book. So that's something that I think the conversation in Empress of Mars recently, where Bill and the Empress, have a conversation, that may have been one of the first to pass the Bechdel test of Mark's work. There was the scene in Unquiet Dead where Gwyneth and Rose have a conversation about seeing planes and stuff in the future, but that was added later by RTD when the episode was running long. So Benny and Ran arrive at the headquarters, and
Greg is going to use her as a bargaining chip for to make sure that the Doctor behaves himself.
So he sends Benny on a mission.
Yes. So Greg decides to send Benny off on a mission to the capital, Porson, by, I always mispronounce this word, dirigible.
Dirigible airship blimp.
Dirigible.
Benny compares the airships to the dirigibles to Silurian airships, which she had encountered in, I want to say it was Blood Heat, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say Blood Tide, but you're right, it was Blood Heat. So quite why she goes, because surely it would be easier with a bargain chip if she was actually there. I don't know. But it does lead to kind of some cool action sequences.
Yeah.
So the Doctor, meanwhile, is in the temple, and he's met Foss, the priest that we were speaking about earlier, who says to the Doctor that you've come at last. And turns out this is a bit of misdirection, and sort of Foss is wondering whether the Doctor is anything to do with this kind of old-time legend of his he's talking about this thing called the Kef.
The other thing we should mention too is that this temple that the Doctor finds himself in predates the rest of the war and everything, so it's been there for some time.
Yes.
It's where the dugout, the trenches, and the headquarters were kind of built around this, so it's part of the structure, but it's older than a lot of the other areas that were carved out for the war.
Yeah. And also, Foss is amazed that the Doctor knows how to light candles, but isn't a priest. So, he's very much the kind of elder, eccentric figure that, particularly Sylvester McCoy in the TV series, would often kind of get paired against. We do have some quite enjoyable scenes, between the two of them.
Interesting philosophical conversations and
There's also a hint of Binro from
Rebos.
The Rebos operation here as well. The Doctor also has a little root around his pockets, and he finds a screwed up piece of paper that he took from kind of Greg's sort of part of the trenches, and discovers Porsum's last message, which is Kef, Kef, Kef. Dun, dun, dun.
Which is a reference to that ancient evil.
Yes. On my notes, sort of various Apple devices kept wanting to do this Keith. It would have been fun to have an ancient evil called Keith. That would have been possibly more entertaining. On the airship, Benny slightly upsets Liso by just basically being. And so Liso suspects Benny's a spy. And because he's nuts, he orders her to be kind of chucked out of the airship. And we get sort of quite a kind of cool scene where they're basically got her hanging over the edge and see the jungle underneath.
And we should mention there are 3 airships total that are in this group that's heading towards the capital city to see what's happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't chuck her out the airlock or the door.
They get distracted because they suddenly see a giant plume of smoke. Because this is quite often the way that this book kind of works, is that basically most chapters end on a cliffhanger, and most cliffhangers are kind of, in Grand Doctor Who style, quite easily got out of, or sort of people suddenly get distracted by something shiny and forget to do the evil act that they're about to do. They suddenly think that that their capital has been destroyed, which it has. And Liso still reckons that she's one of the Kutch, and Benny says it could be kind of another power, like an off-world power. And Liso thinks it's crazy to talk about sort of other planets. When Benny mentions Masatoris, he's got no idea that Masatoris exists. And then Benny remembers why the colony of Masatoris, the 11th colony, is so famous. But she doesn't tell us. But yeah, it's obviously there is a da-da-da kind of thing.
At that point, the dirigibles get attacked by this looming massive spaceship that's kind of hovering. That's black. We don't really get a good description of it, but it's
ever.
Yeah, it's just a big,
really, yes,
big cavernous spaceship as we later learn, and it starts attacking the dirigibles, and they try to retreat. Is it Liso? He orders the soldiers to stand their ground and basically to go down with the ship, and unlike humans who the officers would go down with the ship as well, the Ismech have this rule that the officers get saved. So he heads up to the top of the dirigible where there's it's almost like a glider, like an emergency craft, and there's brass rails that extend down, almost like a miniature launching strip, almost like a roller coaster, to get this thing launched. He's going to escape and head back to the headquarters in that. And I think rather reluctantly, Benny's allowed to accompany him. But before they can get into the glider itself, it gets destroyed by some of the incoming fire from the spaceship.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's a really dramatic scene where there's another dirigible below, and they have to jump from one to the other.
And miraculously survive. It is a very good action scene. I mean, Mark Gatiss has a reputation for not being particularly good at action sequences. I think that's what he's pretty good at. I enjoyed it. I thought it was well choreographed and well paced,
and very easy to visualize. And fortunately, the other blimp that they jump down to also has a kind of escape pod glider thing, so they're able to.
And no one's used it yet. Yes, yeah. We also have sort of Foss sort of in the temple revealing that the kind of the shrine in the temple has something called a Kef stone, which is kind of like a dull stone embedded at its top, and the shrine activates a secret stairway in the floor, as these things always do. And the Doctor has to kind of hide in there when Ran rocks up, because it's towards the end of a chapter, we need a cliffhanger. And then when Ran's kind of gone away, Foss forces the Doctor out, not saying where the stairs lead. The Doctor, though, reckons that these earthquakes that's being experienced are symptoms of a major problem. And he says that Betrushia has days before it dies.
Before he kind of gets shuttled away into the little hidey hole, he leaves his hat, his white fedora from his linen suit, which goes through quite the trashing in this in this novel.
Just,
Yeah. When the soldiers kind of come in to search the temple looking for the doctor, they don't find him, but I think one of the soldiers notices his hat in the corner. After they leave, the doctor emerges and is climbing over the shrine, which is a sacrilegious, blasphemous thing to do. And he removes the Keth stone, and as he's kind of reaching precariously and removing it, the soldiers rush back in, having waited outside for about 5 minutes and recapture him. But he's able to kind of palm the stone in his pocket. More on that later.
Yeah, and then as they go outside to take him to Grek, Rand's men get hit by a hail of meteorites. And one of the younger soldiers we spoke about, Priss, kind of goes to help some of the wounded men and finds them covered in this kind of yellow ectoplasm, which snakes tendrils. Now, I was wondering whether this was slightly inspired by mustard gas. It has a slight, it feels very World War One, this.
Yeah, his description certainly kind of evoke that, especially the color choice and
Priss reckons that this yellow ectoplasm is the Kef, and then he's killed, and the yellow absorbs his remains.
Yeah, and kind of pulls it back underground.
Yeah,
at this point, it's this yellow mass is coming out of the cracks of the ground every so often. It's not. It's a growing threat, but it's kind of in the background still at this point.
Yeah. Also, we're having some more appearances of the woman, this mysterious unnamed woman, and she has kind of been introduced to the second in command of her organisation. This I was going to say gentleman. That's too kind a word for him. This guy called Pava de Hooch, who he's described as a swaddled pig in purple robes. It's also described quite often in the book as a dwarf, which I don't know whether we would actually use that in a modern book these days. I don't know. But basically, think of him as your kind of typical really revolting genre fiction Catholic priest.
It is. It does introduce some. Yeah, that is a little problematic when you have the sinister dwarf henchman sort of character. Yeah. Setting that aside, yeah, we can like problematic media.
We could also dislike problematic media,
or like certain aspects of it, and not others.
Yeah. He also gives her a box containing a lump, which is the tongue of Saint Anthony that he instructs her to wear with pride. You'd have thought that this would go somewhere. It doesn't. The tongue doesn't get mentioned again, I don't think. And he also runs his hand over her thigh because he's a sexist pig and unpleasant.
And we get references that the woman has been is part of this order for some time, and she's very committed and devoted to the practices of the religion, which seems like a twisted version of Christianity, because you get a lot of references to crosses and Saint Anthony, like a saint, that whole structure.
Well, I would say it's a twisted version of Catholicism. You have kind of like a lot of self-flagellation that's appearing. We don't have any kind of like speaking in tongues, but it feels very much kind of in that vibe. If you've seen the TV series Preacher or the comic book series Preacher, in which the show is based, it's that kind of level subtlety. So in other words, not very.
We should mention too that all the people in this church or cathedral are all human or humanoid. There's no references to them being like lizards or part of this other story. It's almost like its own thing happening separately from the book.
Yes. I think it's quite clear that it's important to emphasize that it is not it's not our people from Betrushia. The Doctor's has got Rand to show him where the TARDIS is, and we have this kind of bit of this is where you keep your equipment, and surprised by the size of it. And Makonza and Grek are trying to kind of sort of figure out what the best route forward is because they're hearing all of these reports of the cities having fallen, and they're trying to figure out how many men they can kind of get for a fight, because they feel that the Kutch are pulling a fast one, and that maybe there is some big attack that's happening.
Kind of cool when Rand goes inside the TARDIS and he gets not only the realization that this mammal he's been speaking down to is actually much more technologically sophisticated,
Yeah.
presumably smarter than he is. So he gets a bit of a humbling moment there, but then he gets to see the Doctor takes off in the TARDIS, and so he gets to see his planet from orbit, which is cool. And the Doctor puts on a spacesuit and decides to go out into the rings to get a sample of to compare against what was taken from the soldiers, because his assumption is that the Keth stones are somehow related to the meteorites because they're very similar to what was taken from the soldier. As he's doing an EVA outside the TARDIS, he had mentioned to Rand that in case something goes wrong, he reprogrammed the TARDIS to kind of the fast return switch to, without mentioning it, take him back to where they had taken off from in case something goes wrong. And something does go wrong.
Doctor gets hit by an asteroid fragment and kind of goes floating off into space. And he then starts remembering Fort of Doomsday and the Abankans, and then he gets caught in a tractor beam from the giant spaceship. Also, it's probably worth saying round about this point that Grek and his crew, suddenly they are actually attacked by the Kutch, because the leader of the Kutch, this guy called Imelgahite, who was tracking Benny, has figured out where the base is, and he successfully invades the trenches. And dear old Dr. McConza gets shot dead, which doesn't come as a great surprise, because it kind of felt that it was something that his character, would happen to his character in a World War One storyline. So Grek is kind of captured by Imalgahite, who's getting somewhat gloaty, and the fact that that the Kutch appear to have won, and then Grek reveals what's been happening with their cities, and it turns out that the Kutch cities have been disappearing as well, and they've been having transmitter issues. So Imalgahite is kind of reckoning that it's possibly a trick, and which doesn't seem totally unreasonable. Foss runs out of the temple due to kind of earthquakes and stuff, and Foss doesn't appear to be particularly well hinged at the best of times, but he does freak out a bit when he sees the ooze pouring over the edge of the trench, because he reckons that in the ooze he has seen the face of General Hoff, who was one of the generals that they were hoping to hear from earlier. He's also ranting about the Keth, and he's now been captured by the Kutch. Then Imalgahite has kind of got his men to do a little bit of kind of investigations, and he brings evidence of a head covered in some kind of gelatinous material, and it's the head of Makonza. He's been attacked by the ooze. But the description says several vertebrae dribbled slackly from below the head. Lovely.
There's a few moments in this story where it does get a little graphic, and
we won't go into too much of the kind of the graphic detail, but that gives you a flavour of some of the lovely stuff, and that's nothing compared to the strange things that's coming up. Oh dear. Right. Okay.
Speaking of, we cut back to the cathedral, or the woman forgets some of her, I guess their vows, or part of a prayer that she's supposed to be able to recite, and this creates a lot of anger in
Papa Dahut?
Yep, Dahut creates a lot of anger in him, and he wants to I think have her tongue cut out for getting graphic punishment.
And Dahut kind of goes off to go and have a conversation with the guy who's in charge, this Mango William Hon Wen Yong, who is described as a beautiful 35-year-old Chinese in purple robes. Not a Chinese man or anything. It's like, oh, okay. And he's busy torturing a kitten because the kitten is refusing to acknowledge the will of St. Anthony. He's that kind of guy. Also, at this point, the woman has managed to escape. And Dahut says that the woman's escaped, and Yong seems a little bit perturbed by this, and then gets back to killing the kitten. And I don't know whether this scene's supposed to be funny or anything. I think they're supposed to be comic grotesque, but I just find it vile.
It reminded me a lot of, like in the Dune series, like Baron Harkonnen, that sort of just twisted torture, just to show like how evil and depraved the villain they're up against sort of is.
Yeah.
I'm a cat person, so I did not enjoy
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Enjoy that at all.
So the woman's on the run, and she kind of goes down some stone corridors, and then mysteriously finds herself in an area with the legend "Goggles must be worn," and she then is in a kind of a chamber with banks of circuitry. So, what is going on?
She goes into the room, right? She puts the goggles on and realizes that that bright light is actually the light of an artificial sun. So you get the realization that this seminary isn't on a planet somewhere, or if it is, it's deep underground, or it's could be a part of a spaceship. It's not
the Vatican.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Benny and Lisa, meanwhile, they're in an escape copter being chased by the remorseless black ship, and Lisa lands the copter where the TARDIS had been parked. And kind of Lisa is also having a bit of an existential crisis because he realizes that the Kutch weren't the real enemy after all. It was the Kef. Benny's despondent. Then she realizes that the TARDIS is returning, and but when TARDIS materializes, it's Ran, which makes her despondent again. Ran and Lisso think that they've got no chance against the Kef, and then Benny has this great line of because she thinks she's more optimistic, and she says, "Well, I don't know how many mythical bogeymen have to do their chain rattling in spaceship." Yeah, that sounds like Benny.
Yeah.
Mark Gatiss has a good grasp of Benny here. It does feel like Benny. I'm not entirely sure to what extent the Doctor feels like the seventh Doctor. Certainly, kind of Benny gets to say witty things and be strong and just generally be Benny.
The biggest difference in characterization for the Seventh Doctor for me was that in this story he's very reactive to everything.
Oh, isn't it? Yeah.
In a lot of stories he kind of has extra knowledge about what's going on, or in this case he does a little bit, but not for the entire story, and it's not something where he's setting up chess pieces. It's not that sort of Seventh Doctor.
No, very much not.
Should mention too that at this point we kind of realize that there are two black ships, because there's the one that's pursuing Benny above the jungle in the dirigible before they land, but then there's also the black ship in orbit that scooped up the Doctor in the tractor beam, because you're getting the scenes intercut. So it was around this time that I realized, hey, we have more than one ship here.
Yeah. So the Doctor, he's landed on that black ship in orbit, and he's in an enormous hangar, and finds his way onto the metal corridors. So he gets quite excited about prospects of running down corridors. He's also got a white tablet in his trousers before me analysis. I was like, really? Does he often have that? I don't know. It's like he's got like a smartphone down there or something.
I think he had brought that in his spacesuit as part of the analysis of the meteorite.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a useful thing for him to have on a more regular basis, but sometimes...
It reminded me of a little tricorder.
Yes, doesn't it just?
And now he just has a sonic screwdriver for that.
Yes, because
complete with readouts.
Yes, because in these days, of the Seventh Doctor, no sonic screwdriver, apart from the TV booth. The woman, she's come across this ritual with a load of kind of caged penitents being trundled across flagstones in this big cathedral. And Yong is preaching about the heathens, saying if they convert, they can be spared. And there's a young girl who is asked whether she knows how depraved she is. And when she says that she isn't depraved, she gets stabbed with a spear and then thrown into a column of fire along with the rest of her captives. Lovely. And De Hooch arrives with a prisoner, so the Doctor is found snooping around. And then the Doctor sees the woman, and the woman is Ace.
Surprise!
Yeah. How surprised were you by that?
I've figured it out beforehand, and
Yeah.
not a whole lot before, but in chapter 11, which I think was one or two chapters before the reveal, where she starts realizing that she had suppressed memories. That's what kind of keyed to me. I was like, oh, maybe Ace isn't taking a Nissa nap this whole novel, and she's actually in it. So yeah, it was Ace the whole time. And I kind of pictured Natalie Portman's character from V for Vendetta in terms of kind of how Ace was, or at least before I figured out it was Ace, that was kind of the figure in my mind that I was putting in there. So it turns out it was Ace who was aboard this, and so the cathedral and everything that we thought was perhaps on a planet or somewhere else is all contained within this massive ship, and it's part of a cult that Magna Yang has been running. He's the second in the line, and it got kind of a North Korea Kim Jong-un kind of vibe from him, where his father did the same thing, and they basically go from planet to planet and either eradicate everyone with St. Anthony's fire, which is a giant phaser, laser, Death Star sort of thing that incinerates people, which is what incinerated those the people they had picked up, which were the last surviving human colonists from Metrosis, where Ace had been dropped off. Very few of them that they pick up, they end up converting to become acolytes and brainwash them, and that's the process that Ace went through, but she was able to fight off that conditioning, or at least start to break through it.
It's somewhat Cyberman style in a way. One of the little bits in this kind of series of reveals as to kind of what the deal is with these people is Young said that the chapter is a breakaway movement after all of the faiths were forced to merge in the mid-21st century, and so these Catholic extremists decided to go into space. And I was like, oh, okay.
Like the papal mainframe.
Well, yes. I was wondering to what extent, whether there was any DNA of this in the papal mainframe, but I don't know. The papal mainframe people seem to be more reasonable, or at least more tea time friendly. So Ran is kind of running through the jungle with a wooden box that will become somewhat important later. So just and you may hear the sigh in my voice. Just remember, Ran's got a box, and this is going to become important. And Young is he's kind of all ranting at the Doctor, and he's basically getting all kind of full on, nothing in the world can stop me now, and to kind of to quote
Professor Zaroff.
Yes, Professor Zaroff. Yes, and also in this scene where the Doctor is speaking to Young, Dehooch emerges from underneath Young's purple robes, having been doing something. Or it's like, what? What's on earth?
Oh, I missed that part.
All right, nice, okay. And the ship's coming to land, so kind of Young wants to blow up more of the rings en route of this planet that he admits he doesn't even know the name of. And then when they land, there's two guards that are already on duty, and they give them a briefing as to how verdant the world is. And they say there's a highly developed culture. Not really, it's lizard people doing World War I. And Young tells them to get rid of it all because he's evil.
Of course they were bombarding, the planet with some of the ring fragments. They were kind of causing that, but his idea to get rid of it all is to burn down the jungle, and he dispatches 3 guards with blowtorch backpacks. And I just thought it seemed very symbolic, because there's no way you're going to destroy an entire jungle planet, with just 3 people. But I think he just wanted to lay waste. Apart from the cities that they had already destroyed, this was one of the major groups of life forms that they found on the planet, which is why they landed both the smaller scout ship and then the larger kind of cathedral ship side by side. So both ships kind of land in this no man's zone between the two warring sides. We should mention too, we get a detail that the planet that Ace had been left on is in the same solar system as this planet. So it's like planets 3 and 4 in the same system. So that was an interesting detail, I thought.
We get another curious detail. So one of the guys is kind of going around setting fire to everything. Fondly reminisces about destroying the ancient city of Euros Disney, which is Euro Disney. I was like, what? Right, okay, fine, whatever. Also, there's like a throwaway line that the guards have translators, which is... I only picked that up on kind of like a second read when I was doing my notes, because I was kind of going, how are they all understanding each other? Grek and Amalgahite have decided to kind of work together, and they and Benny sort of arrive on the ships trying to pledge allegiance to the Kef. And Benny pretends that she was found as a child by the lizards and she's been kind of raised almost like Mowgli in the Jungle Book. And the guards decide to go, oh yeah, we'll let you on the ship. Yeah, go on. And whilst that's happening, the Doctor, Ace and Foss sneak off the other ship. Foss has been captured and DeHooch at one point gets thrown in a cupboard by Ace, kind of rather like Hitler does in Let's Kill Hitler. We are going to have a lot of running around and people capturing each other and then getting uncaptured. It's kind of like a Pertwee runaround, but with less of the charm. Yeah.
When all this is happening, the ooze that we heard about from earlier keeps progressing and starts picking off the blowtorch soldiers kind of one by one and sucks them into the mass. And it's growing and becoming this kind of amorphous blob on the surface of the planet.
We also find out round about here that Young has in his quarters a stuffed gorilla that he uses as a communication device.
And an eyeball and a lid that he keeps in a box on his throne to randomly stroke when he wants to touch his own eye but doesn't want to touch his eye. So that's really weird.
Yeah.
Quite the he bathes in giraffe's milk. He's
tiger bone tea, which is the last remnants of the tigers of Earth. Young's a nice guy. So Ace and Foss and the Doctor get back to the temple, where the Doctor sort of says that the rings aren't real and it's all a construct. And they kind of descend the steps and they find underneath the temple a polygon kind of like from ancient times.
Kind of in a nod to what we had on Earth with the Silurians, but in reverse. So the ancient race on this planet was the mammals, and the reptiles were the later. So that was kind of a cool revelation that this previous species on the planet was mammalian, and that you kind of get a info dump at that point as to what happened on the planet, and that. These artificial rings were created as almost like a network to contain amorphous blob that's on the planet to keep it from infecting the rest of the galaxy. And so it's like a prison.
Doctor watches, he's told all of this by a video of Nereid from the prologue. And so I just it felt very Princess Leia, this bit, but... So we're also having quite a bit of action kind of like up on the ship as Benny's captured, Benny escapes, Benny's captured, Benny punches Hooch.
Breaks his nose. There's a coup attempt, and then another coup attempt.
Hooch seems to be telling everybody that will listen that he's going to kind of that he'll be in charge. He's telling people that he shouldn't. And Ran is placing that mysterious box of his between two panels of instrumentation in the in the spaceships.
In the sunroom where there's lots of extra heat.
Yeah. So what is he doing? The Doctor and Ace kind of go aboard Benny's spaceship,
which is the smaller scout ship, and at that point they devise a plan to try and wrap it up.
Yes, there's lots more capturing and stuff that we're not going into because so much padding.
But the plan is basically the reason the blob is getting so much stronger, the Keth, I guess, the Keth was the mammal species, right?
No, the Keth is. It's never actually made terribly clear. I in my mind, I think that the Keth is the kind of the name for the ooze, the blob.
Okay. The rings that were disrupted that created the meteors that rained down on the planet, that was part of the network, the safety field that was keeping this thing contained. So the Doctor's plan is to replace the energy that was lost in the field with really is the ship's cores on both the scout ship and the main ship. And his thought is that between the two of them, if they do it at just the right time, it would release enough energy into the network of rings to cause the planet which is going to explode anyway in a couple of days, but it would do it in such a way to contain the creature so it's not scattered across the galaxy and can infect other worlds, but instead would be contained within the explosion of the planet and destroyed.
Yeah.
So that's the plan, and what they're trying to do is to get both ships into orbit in the ring system to make that happen. Benny's given special allowance to go with Ran to kind of go from city to city or village to village to try and collect as many survivors as they can before this happens. Because even though you have the 3 or 4 main cities, you still have survivors on the outskirts. So they're trying. Yeah. They're given a couple of hours to go do that, while some of all this other escaping and capturing and escaping happens. And then we get kind of the big final moment where the earlier leader Yang, he's has escaped the final time, and he's running through and trying to disrupt the navigation systems from getting into place. And there's this whole convoluted thing where half the controls are on the bridge and half are in the control room, where we saw the incineration of the human colonist survivors earlier.
Here's the thing as well. So you've got the directional equipment in the cathedral. Nobody sees fit to mention this. So you don't have anybody in... It just seems to be people just run from room to room. It would make sense for there to be a group of people kind of having secured one room and a group of people having secured the other room. It seems like Yong seems to be the only person that knows how the ship works, which seems bizarre.
Yeah, and Yang really brought all this upon himself too, because when the Doctor was first brought out on the ship, he said, I like a challenge. I haven't been challenged in a while. Doctor, I'm going to give you free reign of my ship. Do whatever you want. Yeah.
We also, around about this time, get a flashback to Dehooch's youth in the new Dutch Republic. Now, a few of the new adventures had the good people of the Netherlands having to flee due to rising tides. And in this book, apparently, the Dutch settle in land formed in the Atlantic following seismic shifts. And so there you go. If you're Dutch, this is the future that Doctor Who predicts for you. And also, we find out that Dehooch got captured by the chapter when he was en route to Titan. So it's a reference to the last month's book, or not a reference. So it's the same setting, but
plus all the rings made me think of it too.
We now have kind of Young's dead. Then he manages to kill Dehooch, cracking the dwarf's head like a rotten egg, as it says, and it's lovely.
By bringing down a crucifix onto his head.
Yeah. And they managed to get the flames to kind of go, and sort of Young is kind of burnt by the flame. However, the flame's in the wrong direction, so Greg has to kind of run into the cathedral and kind of get the directional stuff right, but alas, he too burns. That did kind of feel like a natural end to his character, probably where it was. Yeah, he was always likely to die. Both the Doctor and kind of Benny independently set up things to kind of kill the remaining sort of St. Anthony's people. The big cathedral ship has now been taken over by the lunatic fringe of the lunatics. And so the Doctor puts the artificial sun into irreversible decline, and Benny's managed to program the ship to go into Betrushia's orbit, and basically it just gets vaporized when the planet explodes.
An interesting thing, the Doctor, he was going to save them and say, you've got enough energy to make landfall, somewhere, so you can escape. And Benny, without telling the Doctor, remotely piloted the ship into the planet. So the Doctor thinks they escaped, and Benny and Ace kind of knowingly between the two of them exchange a moment where they know that's not what happened.
So you'll be delighted to hear that the story's nearly over. We cut to Massatoris, which is now being repopulated with Betrusians and recovering converts, and we get the reveal that Rand's magic box, that was all important, contains the eggs of his future children. Also, at one point, it distracted Yong. Yong got distracted by the box and then got shot and then didn't die. Anyway, so yeah, ridiculous. So Benny explains the legend she'd heard about Massatoris was that the colony had disappeared and that another race was found to be living there sometime later, that everyone assumed was an invasion force. So she thought that the Betrusians were going to attack Massatoris. I've got two questions. Because there's some recovering converts as well. Wouldn't they be able to put the record straight? And also, this doesn't sound like the kind of misunderstanding that would be resolved peacefully. So, if the people of kind of of the human empire or whatever kind of come back and sort of oh, you're now in charge of this colony. What happened to all the humans? It doesn't sound like it would be sorted out over a cup of tea. seems like a potentially a kind of a grim ending, but everyone now just goes on their way and sort of yes. Oh, what a joy that was.
So that's St. Anthony's Fire.
Do you want to go first? I think my opinion's probably quite clear.
Yeah. Overall, I wasn't. I did like I mentioned kind of as we were talking through the plot summary. There were parts of this that I did find somewhat problematic, especially looking at it, with a 2017 lens. Given the time it was written in, and I kind of middle of the road for me. There were parts of this I really enjoyed. One thing that did come to mind was a quote from Russell T Davies when he was bringing back the new series, and one of the reasons why he said he didn't set things on alien planets is because no one cares about aliens from the planet Zog, and you to tie it to Earth in some respect. I did like what Gatiss did with the cultures and the war and stuff, but a lot of it was in a weird way kind of telegraphing bits of stories that he would use later on in New Who. So there's that layer added onto it too. So I found it kind of hard to judge this on its own as a story. What were your kind of opinion about it?
I think it feels like it'd probably been better as a novella, because we don't get an enormous amount of stuff about the kind of the culture of the Betrusians, apart from the fact that they're in a big old war. I would have loved to have found out some more about the kind of the culture, but we just have very small hints. Yeah, these did just feel like blokes in lizard suits, and there's not much about their biology that's kind of different, or about their society. Having some female soldiers, that would have just helped a little bit, or some other, there's various things that could have been done just to make things a bit more imaginative. And I just actively no interest in the scenes featuring the chapter of St. Anthony. I found those just appalling people doing appalling things, but religions and cults, because this is very much a cult in this, they're a lot more interesting when you can see what the appeal would be, and sort of they would become more credible kind of villains or presences in a story that way. Whereas with this, they're just clearly crazy. I couldn't. It was just bad, and there's so much running around and getting captured, and it's
I had thought I had read this before, but this is where I had stopped. Back in the late 90s, like I think it was early 2000s even, decided to try and read all the New Adventures in order. I got up to St. Anthony's Fire, and I never started this one. And I think it was just because right around that same time the show had come back, and then I stepped away from it and never picked it up. But I don't know, had I read this one, if I would have gotten much farther. This one, and then I think Falls of the Shadows, the next one, which I haven't read, but it has also a kind of a bad reputation. So
without wishing to go into spoilers, I will on my reaction. I mean, I will. I remember having issues with both, but enjoying Falls to Shadow more.
That's
very different issues. But
for St. Anthony's Fire, I definitely, the first half was better, or felt better than reading the second half.
Yeah.
In terms of how we would rate this one, I think I would give it a 6 out of 10. There were elements I liked. I would have appreciated more, Dr. Benny and Ace. They didn't seem like they were in the story a whole lot. I think I enjoyed the parts with Benny the most. In terms of the three main characters. It just didn't all come together for me, I guess. In that way, and it felt a little padded with all the runarounds and capturing and recapturing. So the gem of a story's there, but I totally agree with you. I think it may have worked better as a novella.
I mean, for me, I just found it. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it's a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking of giving it a 4, and then I've just kind of I've just thought
a 6 and a 3.
6 and a 3. I don't think we've had as big a divergence. No, we did. We did had a 4 and a 7. Yeah. So.
With a Big Bang Generation.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in both cases, the person who gave it the lowest score was the one who chose it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, dear. Gosh. Yeah.
Well, okay. We do have hope. I think next month will be a little bit more interesting and different. We'll get to that in a second.
Yes. Shall we cleanse our palate with some mail?
Yes. Let's see. We ran a Twitter poll.
Mm-hmm.
We asked of the first 4 books we had done, what has been listeners' favorites, and it could have been favorite book if they had read it along with us, or perhaps more likely which of the 4 podcasts they enjoyed the story of the most.
Yeah.
And Engines of War got 45%,
Okay.
which was the highest score. Big Bang Generation got 18%. Silent Stars Go By got 9%, which surprised me a little bit. And then Face of the Enemy got 28%. So it was kind of interesting to get that feedback. We did get an email, let me find it here, Thomas, who says, I'm a fan of the podcast and it's very insightful. Keep up the great work. And then he he says, I have some suggestions if you'll take them. And he lists 4 books that he would like us to review. I'm not going to reveal the titles.
Right.
I will say to Thomas that one of the 4 books he picked is on my short list for November. So
Ooh, okay.
unless something big happens and some new Doctor Who books gets published or something, Thomas, one of your 4 suggestions is what I'm going to pick for November's reading. So stay tuned for that. But before that, we have September next month, and we're going to change it up quite a bit. Up until this point, we've only read novels. We're going to kind of expand the remit a little bit, and for the first time, we're going to do a anthology book. And there were quite a few different ranges to choose from. Virgin Publishing did a series of 5 books called Decalogue. BBC Books did 3 called Short Trips. And then Big Finish did something like 30 short trips books. And then there's been some done by publishers since, like Penguin has done like 12 Doctors, 12 stories. But I decided to go with was Short Trips, the original Short Trips, the BBC Books version from 98, yeah. So that'll be interesting. There's 16 stories in that collection total, and it'll be a little bit different format, I think, podcast-wise, where we might tackle it lightning round style, where we would do quick recaps and reactions for each story, and then at the end give a numerical ranking to the entire collection. So something new and different next time.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward. I have skipped ahead and I've read the first story of one of them. Yeah, so that was a nice quick read. Yeah, should be fun. Certainly, I'm looking forward to reading about something that isn't evil religious folk doing horrible things to kittens.
Yeah. Do you want to
apologize? Yeah.
No. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Facebook page?
Yes. So I've set up a Facebook page. I've done it as a kind of as a page of the podcast. If people are interested, then I'm happy to kind of like convert it into a kind of community group along the lines of kind of like the TARDIS Tavern, amongst others. So do feel free to kind of put any comments on there. There's a sort of a post for each of the episodes. So if you've got any kind of thoughts on the book, also any thoughts on the show, and also please go along to iTunes and put a review, because that does help the algorithm.
It does, yeah. If we can get, I think 2 or 3 more reviews will start showing up higher in the search results, and that'll help us out a lot. And it just takes a minute or 2 for you to, if you open up your app and go ahead and give us a rating.
Yeah.
All right, well, exciting stuff.
Yes.
And until next time, I've been Matt in Minnesota.
And I've been a very penitent Chris in South London. Happy reading.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. You can contact the show and follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast. Our music is the Doctor Who theme, Swing Jazz version by George C. Music, used with attribution under Creative Commons license. Until next month, happy reading.
Have you seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet?
I have.
Yes, we are not long back from that. That was rather good. I enjoyed it.
I really liked it.
Did you stick to the end for the final kind of post-credit scene?
Yeah, the Captain America one.
Yes, which is a lovely nod to Ferris Bueller.
I haven't seen the 2 Andrew Garfield ones yet.
The first Garfield possibly is my favourite Spider-Man movie, but as we might discover during the course of this podcast, my tastes don't necessarily align with the masses. So the second Garfield is rubbish.